Welcome back, everybody. Don't click your teeth. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Midlife Moto Garage. But I wasn't looking at the fucking camera, so let's do it again. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Midlife Moto Garage. I'm Nick, and this is Project Pumpkin Spice, my 2025 Triumph Speed Twin 1200 RS. On today's episode, we've got a foot fetish. That's right. Last episode, BBL. This episode, foot fetish. I mean, it's the logical progression, right? As a rider, you have 3 touch points to the motorcycle, right? Pretty simple. Your butt touches the seat, your hands touch the grips, and your feet touch the pegs. So we're gonna upgrade one of those interfaces today, and I'm betting that you can figure out which one it's gonna be. We're gonna be replacing the stock silver non-adjustable foot pegs that came with the Speed Twin 1200, and we are going to be swapping them out for some Puig, I think. Trying my hardest, I'm not 100% sure. R-Fighter foot pegs, both front and rear, in black. So part 2 is going to be our heel guards, which are also blindingly silver, and we're gonna swap those out for a set of classic bike race Triumph milled black heel guards, which I think is really gonna set that area of the bike off. Finally, our foot fetish will culminate with the installation of some classic bike race relax highway pegs. That's right, highway pegs on an RS. Whatever, it's my bike, I do what I want. Every once in a while, being able to kick your feet out and get a little bit of relaxation in your knee is a wonderful old man mod for me, so I'm going with it. And while we're down there working on the relax foot peg kit, we're also gonna swap out this silver clutch guide with a black Motone unit that I purchased from A&J Cycles. Shout out A&J, shout out Brian. So today seems like a pretty simple one. Not a lot of spots where things can go horribly wrong. We've had those passenger pegs off in the past episode when we were doing the exhaust installation. So I don't think it's gonna be that complicated, and I can't wait to get into it, so let's do it. So for phase 1 of today's install, we are going to be swapping out the rider and passenger foot pegs. And the only thing involved in that is a pair of needle nose pliers. That's it. We're just removing an E-clip from the bottom of each one, and then the pegs pop right out. The second part of phase 1 will be the heel guard, and the heel guard requires a T30 for removal. And the new CBR kit includes its own little screws and a little spacer, and those are 4mm Allen. Once we've got the pegs installed and the heel guard installed, we're going to adjust the angle of the foot peg, and that uses a 5mm Allen. The final and most important thing on anything we're installing on our motorcycle is going to be Loctite 243. That is your blue, medium strength, no heat required for removal Loctite, which is just a vibration compensation thing. Anytime we're doing work on something that vibrates. All right, so let's get into it. We're gonna start with the passenger pegs, which is super simple. It's just gonna be removing this E-clip on the back, which is super simple. We just grab it with a pair of needle nose and just give it a little tug off. Tug it off. And then we're going to pop the pin out. And when we take the pin out, the retaining ball, the clip, and the spring are all gonna try and attack us at once. So we just wanna make sure not to lose any of that stuff. So there comes the pin. And then we've got the peg itself, the clip, and the detent ball. Okay, so the stock peg is now removed, and we're ready to install the Puig peg with its own little bracket. Here's a pro tip for you. We need to transfer the spring and the detent ball from the stock peg into the Puig peg. So I'm gonna put a tiny little dab of grease on the spring to retain the ball and the spring so they don't fly all over the place when I'm trying to install this thing. So I've got just a tiny little bit of super lube silicone grease, and I'm just gonna put a little tiny dab right on the spring. Okay. Now our detent ball goes in. Our bracket, clip, whatever we want to call it, goes on to the peg. Then we've got our pin in hand, and we're just going to work the Puig peg into the opening. Success. Okay, so the final step is to install the E-clip that retains the peg on the back side. Bam. One peg down. Now, what I want to do is I want to make sure that the angle of the new peg matches the angle of the stock peg. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to loosen up this little 5mm hex in here. I'm going to rotate the peg until it is at a very similar angle to what the stock peg is. Then I'm going to lock it back in. And we're going to call that a day. Repeat that, of course, on the other side, and now your passenger pegs are swapped. Let's move on to the rider pegs. So similar procedure here for the rider pegs as the passenger pegs. First thing we're going to do is we are going to remove our little E-clip from the peg. And we're not going to lose it, because that's the most important thing. Okay, E-clip is out. We pop the retaining pin out. Now the thing here that's going to be different is we need to make sure that the spring doesn't go flying when we remove this peg. So we made sure of that. And here is our stock peg and stock spring. So the rider peg and the spring are out. And now we've got to reinstall. So the spring's job is to keep the peg down. Even if it gets flopped up, it's supposed to push it back down. So we need to tension the spring against the inside of the peg, and that's going to leave our spring sticking out the back. There's a tiny little locating hole in the bike that we want to insert that into as we are attaching our peg. So we're going to get it lined up all nicey. Hey, first try. Okay, so our spring is lined up correctly. Our peg is in. We're gonna reinstall our E-clip, similar to the method that we used to remove it, holding it with our little baby needle nose pliers. We're just gonna pop that guy back on, bing, bang, boom, and that's done. So now we're gonna grab our 5mm hex, and we are going to loosen this bolt, and we are going to clock it so it is exactly the same as the factory peg was. Now, I don't know if I'm going to leave them that way, but I do know that it's a great point of reference to just put them how the factory ones were and adjust later. So we got to adjust it to how we want. And there we go. She's nice and tight. Spring action works. Detent ball works. Pegs are done. We are going to be removing the heel guards now, and all that requires is a T30. Okay, so the heel guard came off with very little effort, and the new CBR kit includes a little spacer to put behind one of the bolts. So I believe it needs to go on the top bolt hole, because that will keep the heel guard a little bit more vertical. So that's the one we're gonna use. So now to install the heel guard itself, we preloaded a little bit of blue Loctite on the threads. We added the little spacer from CBR's kit onto the bolt, and we're gonna grab our 4mm hex, and we are going to just get that started on the top. We have our blue Loctite on our lower bolt. Line this heel guard up correctly. And then we're gonna snug that guy up. Now, I don't really have a torque spec on these, so I'm just gonna go Guten tight. Bam, looking great. Let's do a quick compare and contrast. Yeesh. Ooh, gross. Ooh, I don't like that so much. Wow, that's cool. Pretty excited by that. Again, repeat the process on the other side and you're all done. Let's keep moving. Phase 1, pegs, heel guards, done. Now we're gonna move on to phase 2, which is going to be to install the CBR Relax highway peg kit so that we can kick our feet out a little bit when we are chilling on the highway. And while we've got that apart, since it's right here, we're also going to install our black Motone clutch guide. So the tools required, we've got an 8mm socket, and the 8mm socket is going to be used to remove the case bolts. We've got a 4mm hex, because once we remove those case bolts and we install the CBR kit, those bolts are held on with 4mm hex. We've got a 12mm wrench spanner for my UK folks in order to loosen the clutch guide retaining nuts to remove the guide. So let's get into it. I'm going to start off by removing the clutch guide itself, which is going to be just these two 8mm bolts. By the way, these little Motion Pro T-handles, these are wonderful if you're not going to be using electric ratchets in the garage and you want to just have maybe a faster hand tool. These things work absolute wonders. Now I got the first bolt out, and before I go ahead and remove the second bolt while it's holding the clutch cable in, I'm going to crack loose the adjusting nut on the clutch, and I'm going to spin off the little rubber boot from the end of the clutch guide. Now I will be able to, once I remove the clutch guide, slide it off the end. So bolt number 2 is coming up now. Now we're going to take the clutch guide, slide it forward, and remove it. And there goes our clutch guide. The Motone part installs much the same way. We place it over the clutch cable, slide it up into position, and that is a lot cooler looking as far as I'm concerned. So we are going to thread the adjuster nut back on, nice and loose for now, because what do we know? And we're just going to get this guy nice and snug. Okay, snug and lined up. So for now, that's as good as we can do on the clutch guide. Our next step is going to be to remove these two 8mm bolts, which are the other two 8mm bolts that hold the CBR Relax kit in place. And those bolts are out. Now we're going to test fit the CBR kit, which sits right about here. And in the kit, these little spacers are included because we need to push this whole assembly out from the bike slightly so that we don't foul the cover. So if we grab one of our bolts from the CBR kit and we just pop it through the plate, and we pop the spacer on the back, and then we hold this guy up. Look at that. It's almost like it was meant to be. Now, I think we just have to use this one long bolt, and I'm not sure, but I think the other two may be the shorter bolts from the CBR kit, but we're gonna see how it goes now. We're gonna just hold this in from behind, line up the spacer and the bolt, and see what we come up with. Oh, there we go, another one, perfect. And now this third one is going to go through our clutch guide. And now we're gonna grab our 4mm hex and just start tightening these down. Boy, is that cool. Our pegs flop right up out of the way and flop down when we need them. And I am super psyched. So the last thing we're going to do is we are going to adjust this CBR foot peg. Now this, I believe, is a 4mm hex as well. We're gonna crack that loose, and we are going to angle it backwards slightly towards the rider, because it's definitely not going to be straight up and down considering our knees are over here and the pegs are here. So I'm gonna angle it slightly backwards, and then we're gonna tighten her up. And we're going to pop the little decorative cap onto the end of the peg. Beautiful. Now all we need to do is finish up our clutch guide installation, which is going to require us to tighten our little 12mm nut that was holding the adjuster in place, because we didn't tighten that earlier. Okay. Now that we've got that snugged up, we're just gonna pop our little rubber cap back on, and our clutch guide is now also done. After you're done here, just to make sure that everything is exactly where you wanted it, work your clutch lever a couple times and just check to make sure that it's still engaging correctly. If not, you may need to move it a quarter turn, half a turn, one way or the other. Now that you've got everything final tight and arranged the way you want it, we're just gonna go ahead and put a little bit of torque on the clutch adjuster, and that thing is locked up. Now, traditionally, I would not show you what's going on the other side of the bike. I just say repeat, and I'm not gonna change my way of working now. What I am gonna tell you is that the bracket for the right side of the bike is slightly different due to the cover on the right side of the bike being slightly different. The installation process is exactly the same. It's the same 3 spacers. You use 3 shorter bolts that came in the CBR kit, and otherwise, it's identical. What sets Triumph motorcycles apart from other brands for most people? Well, I can't speak for them, but I can speak for myself. For me, it's the attention to detail, right? The craftsmanship, the quality of work, the build quality, right? So the attention to detail in my modifications needs to match the level that Triumph puts into the bikes from the factory. I feel like that's, the way it's gotta go. So what did we do? We added our Puig R-Fighter pegs for both rider and passenger, got rid of the silver, and added a nice little kiss of black down here and a little bit of adjustability. Also, we got rid of the stock Triumph heel guards, and we added the CBR milled black heel guards. Now they're mostly black. They give me a little pop of silver, which I really like. And we also added the CBR Relax Footpeg kit, which I think is gonna absolutely multiply the comfort on highway trips. Now also, due to the magic of television, maybe you noticed, maybe you haven't. But I also took the liberty of replacing every one of my clutch case bolts here with the CBR black bolt kit. We also, if you recall, did the Motone black clutch guide to finish this all up. And I reached out to A&J Cycles to get a hold of the black blanking plug here. So that didn't stick out incredibly silver. Also, you'll notice our clutch and ACG covers both now match the air cooling fins on the cylinder. And also, while we were in there, we added the Motone head bolt covers in black as well. Everything is really coming along the way that I envisioned it at the beginning of the project. You'll notice there are some parts missing from the bike right now, and that's because the throttle body cover is getting powder coated, the side covers are gonna get painted, and we've got some other painting and powder coating stuff going on, and I hope you stick around to watch that as well. So get at me in the comments. Let me know why I'm an idiot in my core. Let me know if your kind of idiocy matches my kind of idiocy. Do you like some of the mods I'm doing? Do you hate some of the mods I'm doing? Any feedback that I can get, I absolutely appreciate. What projects are you working on now? You got something that's giving you trouble? Do you have something you're apprehensive about starting? Do you have a part you want to order but you're not sure that you can install it? Get at me in my DMs, leave a comment here, and we'll connect. Maybe I can talk you out of it, maybe I can talk you into it. And now that we've reached the end, I'd like to give a massive thank you to everybody who's coming along on this journey with me, and everybody who's commented and subscribed and reached out. I really appreciate all the feedback and all the love. And as always, remember, wrench, regret, repeat. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.